Welcome to Anchorage, a truly wild city. Like most urban jungles, this city is plagued by thieves and petty crime. But here in Anchorage, the culprits aren't human, they're wild animals. This unique Arctic city is home to hundreds of bears and over 2,000 moose. But Anchorage also has a rather unique resident who is renowned as nature's lumberjack, the beaver. With their powerful teeth, the trees they fell can be huge. Beaver dams are causing huge floods in the city, but local residents are still fighting to protect them. But as their paths cross with Anchorage's dogs, are things about to turn bad for the beavers? This is Arctic City. Alaska, by far the biggest state in the US, measuring over twice the size of Texas, but home to less than 1 million people. This extreme Arctic wilderness is home to some of the toughest and most spectacular animals on Earth. With over 3,000 river systems, and 3 million lakes. It is also home to millions of beavers. Beavers are North America's largest rodent. They are surprisingly big, weighing nearly 100 pounds, the equivalent of a baby hippo. They are perfectly designed for their underwater life. They have webbed feet for swimming, and their broad black tail is used as a rudder. To survive the harsh winters, they build underwater lodges where they store their food supplies to enable them to survive under the ice. But what beavers are most known for are their logging skills. The true lumberjacks of the natural world, they construct dams over 2,500 feet long and 20 feet high. They can be so big, they can be seen from space. And the trees they fell can be huge, up to 150 feet tall and 3 feet across. Thanks to the power in their jaws and incredibly strong teeth, no other animal has such a dramatic effect on its natural habitat. Beavers may have been shaping the state's southern waterways for thousands of years, but it isn't just the beavers that have been building in Alaska. Since humans arrived here, many beavers have been forced to live in an urban jungle. And as the city of Anchorage expands, that means more people, more cars, and the biggest risk to beavers, pet dogs. But these unique animals have found a way to thrive, even in the city. And their incredible building abilities can cause problems for its residents. But one man is on a mission to live alongside the beavers, whatever the cost. Anchorage resident David lives in a house built on Reflection Lake, right in the heart of beaver country. The 4-hectare lake is surrounded by dozens of homes, and when water levels rise in the spring melt, a creek runs out the lake right past David's house. This lake is also home to a family of beavers that David has been watching for many years.
You know, it's very enjoyable to be able to look out your window or go out on the deck or down to your patio, and you get to see the beavers swimming around. It's all part of being able to relax and unstress from your day of work, and you're right in the middle of town. It's just so refreshing. It kind of rekindles your spirit and, you know, makes you feel good.
And it's in the evening when the beavers come to life.
When it quiets down, the beavers will come out and they'll come up on the shoreline and nip on the branches, the brush, and some fallen trees, and they'll work on building the dam in the creek. But it's a great spot, and you see a lot of activity around the water.
When David first moved here, he had no idea that his new neighbors were going to be beavers. But from the first moment he encountered them, he was hooked.
My wife and I were out here in the backyard working in their flower beds, and we heard a tree drop into the lake. A big, 12, 14-inch diameter cottonwood crashed down. So we walk out here to the lake shore, and there's like 4 beavers stripping the bark and eating the bark. There was a mother and 3 young ones. And we were able to get within 5-6 feet of the shoreline and take pictures.
David continued to watch the beavers for the next 4 years. And one of the things that fascinated him the most was just how they built their dams.
The way the beaver will actually construct it is like he's a full-blown engineer professor, because it's very unique. What they'll do is they'll gnaw down branches about 1 inch or 2 inch diameter, and probably 5 to 6 feet long, come swimming down the creek with the sharp end of the stick that they just nibbled off in their mouth. And as they get to where they're going to build a dam, they'll actually jam this edge of this branch into the bank.
Then, with the sticks in place, they allow the current to push on them, fixing the branches across the river or stream. The beavers then add more and more sticks and stones to their dam, helping the water to rise higher and higher.
It uses nature to help make the dam, I guess,
But in 2006, the beaver construction project started to take a turn for the worse.
They'd be up here dropping these trees, 18-inch diameter cottonwoods, all the way around, and in total they took down about 100 trees. Now the beavers are honing in, they're nipping the branches and they're floating the branches down. They build this dam probably about 2.5 feet above the water level. So that's backing up the lake big time. We're getting all this water out here.
And these beavers were on a dam-making mission. They just didn't know when to stop.
Throughout the summer, the beavers had taken down more trees and kept building more dams. They had 3 dams on the creek, and we had water probably 8 inches high on the streets, and people were out there with canoes, and you could see the salmon and the trout swimming around, and kids were out there with a fishing rod.
The local residents had had enough. They wanted the beavers to be relocated. So the Alaskan Department of Fish and Game, who worked to protect all the wildlife of Anchorage, were called in to help. But David wanted to find another solution, as he didn't want the beavers he had grown to know and love to have to leave. And he found that solution.
I work with Fish and Game to open the dams up a little bit at a time, to maintain the water level overall, and to keep it from being totally blocked off. We wanted to allow the trout and salmon to be able to get through, but you still have the experience of the beavers swimming around, and makes it enjoyable.
Fish and Game told David that each year, if the water level gets too high, he can open the dams up slightly. This has meant David still gets to watch his beaver neighbors and people's homes don't flood. He has created the perfect balance to live alongside these amazing creatures.
We had the best of both worlds where we do have the wildlife, but we do have the safety of our property rights as well. So that works out pretty good.
The beavers may often cause flooding in the city, but protecting the Anchorage beaver population is incredibly important for all wildlife, as the dams they build also affect the survival of many other species. Just outside the city lies the Eagle River Nature Centre, where local ranger and guide Colin Tyler Bogutsky is working to protect the beavers of the city.
Well, the trees and the branches and things that they chew down, they then dam a creek to create a larger pool of water, a pond or a small lake. So it's better habitat for them to live in. But they're usually there for a number of years, and again, it creates more wetland habitat for other species. It can attract moose, otters we see quite a bit, and of course these are some of the same areas where the salmon spawn, and that's where you find bears.
With moose, salmon, bears, and all the wetland birds depending on the beaver dams for their survival, Colin is constantly monitoring all beaver activity in the area. But today he's investigating some large-scale dam building which could have a destructive outcome for people living in houses near the river.
So what we have here is a tree that was recently felled by beavers. Very recently, I say, because you can see the leaves are still green. Maybe they're going to try and create a dam and dam up that section of the river.
This huge tree could be the start of a dam. If the beavers create a dam across a river as powerful as this, when the levels rise, thousands of Anchorage homes could be flooded. And as he explores further downstream, he finds more evidence the beavers are very active in this area.
Yeah, you can see here the beavers have been chewing. You can see the teeth marks right here. They've chewed through this layer of bark, and eventually they'll work further and further into the tree until it falls over into the river. I bet they could have this down within a few days. They have sharp teeth, they can work very fast.
But the trees may not be for dams. At this time of year, the beavers will also be using the logs and bark to build lodges under the water as they prepare to give birth to their kits. They drag logs underwater and pack them with mud, creating a dry, safe place to rear their young. They will have 3 or 4 kits every summer, and their young stay with the parents for 2 years. Incredibly, the young are able to swim within hours of being born. Colin decides to set up a camera trap to work out if the beavers have used the bark from this tree to build a lodge, or if they really are trying to dam the river. As the spring meltwaters continue to flow, to protect Anchorage's homes from flooding, the city's rivers must remain open. As spring temperatures rise, bear cubs roam the streets. And beavers are preparing to have their kits in the city's lakes and rivers. But with every cute baby comes a very protective mother. In 2011, a spate of beaver attacks left the people of Anchorage in shock. University Lake, right in the heart of Anchorage, has been home to a family of 6 peaceful beavers for years. But out of nowhere, the beavers went on a rampage, attacking dozens of large dogs, causing serious life-threatening injuries. Stacy Smith had been coming here for years to walk her dog, but in June that year, she was shocked by what happened.
Willoughby was an 11-year-old rescued American Pit Bull Terrier, and he and I would go on a walk during my lunch break, and he would sometimes jump in the water. He loved to swim. And this particular day, he jumped in, but I didn't actually see him immediately because he had gone over the edge and there was brush down there. And when I looked out, I saw him heading out toward the middle of the lake. And I, at the same time, immediately saw something heading toward him. And I knew it was a beaver.
Stacy started to panic as it looked like the beaver was heading straight for Willoughby.
I frantically started to call him, and he thankfully immediately turned around and headed straight back toward me and was swimming, and it was a race for the shoreline. And he almost made it. He yelped and came limping out of the water. It was a good deep bite. It looked like big front teeth and then another wound on just a little bit down from that.
Due to his injuries, Stacy rushed Willoughby to her local vet, Dr. Denny Albert.
He had a tearing and puncture wound, laceration, which I could clip and clean and flush and then close partially using staples. He did fabulously. We were very pleased at that, and I think the owner was pleased by that as well.
And for Dr. Denny, she has treated some of the more extreme beaver attacks.
The owner was standing on shore and suddenly heard the dog yelp and basically screaming for a dog and kind of go partially under and come back up, and he saw blood. And so this one had been attacked from underneath by the beaver. I mean, beavers can go underwater and swim in it. And the thing about beavers is that they kind of rip and tear. It's pretty nasty. If you think about it, you know, they have teeth that like grow forever. So, and they can take trees down. So clearly soft tissue is not a challenge for them. And if they're angry or working defensively for themselves, then, you know, they can do considerable damage. This dog we almost lost.
Although entirely herbivorous, the beavers were biting back. With more and more people and pets invading their space, they decided to defend their territory. But Dr. Denny is adamant these are not problem beavers. They were just protecting their home.
Not the beaver's fault, I don't feel. You know, they're wildlife. We're impinging on them. We need to respect the territory of the beaver and do what we can not to kind of invade their space too closely, because there's results from that, and that's natural.
But people didn't realize the main reason the adult beavers were being so aggressively territorial. They had their kits hiding in the underwater lodges.
I think people may not be informed about beavers. I really wasn't. I didn't expect a beaver to come after a dog like that, but I think it's important for people to know.
After the numerous attacks, the Alaskan Department of Fish and Game took action. They placed warning signs around the lake, informing people of the dangers of beavers in the weeks surrounding the birth of their young. Since their installment, there haven't been any further attacks on dogs, and this lake's urban beavers have been able to raise their young in peace. On the edge of the city, Ranger Colin has now collected the camera trap to find out if the beavers are attempting to dam the city's river. But the tree is still standing, and it seems the beavers haven't returned. Luckily for the nearby houses, Colin thinks the footage proves that the beavers on this river are building lodges for their babies, not a dam. And it seems they aren't the only animals in Anchorage having babies. As he checks the final clip, he has captured something quite incredible.
Oh, here we go. that. Captured a cow and a calf moose, a newborn calf. Look at that.
Colin is amazed, as this is the earliest he has ever seen a newborn moose calf.
Here's the mother, here's the cow moose coming out of the river. There, the baby just climbed out behind her. There she goes, there's the baby.
But Colin fears this incredible sight might indicate something more dramatic. This year has seen the warmest winter and spring on record, and it appears to have had an effect on the city's wildlife. Moose are giving birth early, and the beavers are preparing for the arrival of their young much sooner than ever before. Having seen the footage, Colin immediately sets out to see if any other moose are being born in the area. The moose in Anchorage use the safety of the city to give birth to their young, usually in people's backyards, to get away from the hungry brown bears. But having so many angry, protective female moose in the city is also highly dangerous, because just like a beaver mom, they like to be left in peace. Colin is going to check the entire area to document any evidence that the warmer weather is affecting the moose's birthing cycle.
So I came out here earlier today to walk the trails and look for the moose. I was watching in yards and around corners of houses and things like that. The moose, they're very, very large animals, but they can hide quite easily. They can easily tuck behind a bush, and you'd never realize there was a 1,000-pound mammal 10 feet from you.
And you definitely don't want to surprise a moose, particularly with calves, as they are a force to be reckoned with.
Moose are very powerful animals, they're very large animals, largest member of the deer family, upwards of over 1,000 pounds. So they're very powerful, and they may seem very docile, and they typically are, but if they're agitated, they will attack and can be lethal. They're very powerful, so you have to respect them and give them their space.
As Colin continued to look around the gardens, he finally found what he was looking for.
I found them lying in somebody's yard. And they were lying for a little while and then stood up and began to graze, and then I watched them as they walked down to the path.
And as Colin moves further around the neighborhood, he spots more and more moose with their calves. Moose mothers generally give birth to twins. These calves may be just days old, but they are already able to outrun a human. The next year will be all about these calves learning the ways of city life here in Anchorage. Then the mother Colin is watching turns her attention right towards him.
If I see a moose look at me, turn its attention towards me with its ears forward and its hair stands up on its back, it's time to go. That's telling you it doesn't want you there.
And this moose mother decides it's time for Colin to leave. With so many calves being born early after this year's warmer weather, the city's residents may now need to be on the lookout for overprotective moose much earlier than before. And it's not just Anchorage's moose that are facing change. The city's beavers must also deal with life in this fast-growing city. But thanks to its beaver-loving residents, these hardy animals not only survive the harsh winter, but have won the struggle against Anchorage's ever-increasing dog populations. Nature's lumberjacks, their amazing constructions, help all the wildlife of the city. And in return, the people are helping to protect them. But beavers aren't the only urban super rodent being helped by humans. Anchorage also shelters a large and healthy population of porcupines. They find food and refuge in the city during the bitter Alaskan winters. But life on the streets also takes its toll. Porcupines are the city's #1 roadkill. However, the residents are coming to their rescue.
We have a porcupine that was hit by a car, we presume, because when it came in, it had a broken front foot and a kind of smashed face.
They are doing their best to help these bizarre creatures survive life in Anchorage. The snow forests of Alaska, known as the taiga, cover most of inland Alaska. That's over 300,000 square miles of trees. And living amongst them, some truly hardy animals. Including the weird and wonderful porcupine. These Alaskan porcupines are almost twice the size of those found in the rest of the United States. Their ancestors originated in South America, migrating here some 3 million years ago, where they've adapted to the extreme Alaskan climate. Porcupines don't hibernate, but they somehow survive some of the harshest winters on Earth by living off their fat stores. In fact, over 50% of a porcupine is pure fat. But this fat makes them highly attractive to Alaska's carnivores. Although taking a bite from a porcupine is potentially deadly. Defending themselves with their infamous quills, very few animals mess with them. But Alaska's deadliest predator sometimes takes on the challenge. Wolves can kill a caribou weighing nearly 500 pounds. But this porcupine's quills make it much harder to eat. When threatened, the porcupine strikes with its tail, each blow leaving hundreds of its 30,000 barbed quills embedded in its attacker. Most predators will only make this mistake once. And this wolf makes the decision to find an easier meal. These armored animals are capable of surviving almost anything the Alaskan wilderness can throw at them. But they are now coming face to face with the dangers of the urban jungle. Anchorage was built right in the heart of the porcupine's territory. So the porcupines that have lived here for centuries are now being forced to live alongside humans. Living in the city does bring some benefits for the porcupines. But along with people are thousands of domesticated dogs that can be as big a threat to the city's porcupines as a wild wolf. But as the city's dog owners know, attacking a porcupine rarely ends well.
So we were out hiking with some friends of ours, and they had brought their dog as well. And we'd hiked for quite a ways, and on our way back down the hill, one of our dogs took off. Once she took off running, then the other dogs took off running. And I could immediately tell that it had to be in some kind of wild animal down there because of how they were responding.
Initially, Mary thought the dogs had stumbled across a bear feeding in someone's garden.
My husband had to go down this steep ravine and through a lot of bushes and stuff, and he saw them down there with a porcupine.
It was a large male, and they knew immediately that the dogs were in danger.
But the porcupine was not backing off, and the dogs weren't leaving either.
The dogs were just protecting their owners, but had no idea who they were dealing with.
The porcupines, unfortunately, are one that you just really don't want them to go after because of the repercussions.
For the dogs, going face to face with the porcupine was a big mistake.
You know, immediately when I saw them on the trail, I saw the quills in their faces, and it wasn't looking good. All three of the dogs had quills that were through their lips, in their nose. They had some even down in their mouth. So we got them on their leashes, and I called our vet right away.
The porcupine's armor had done the trick, even when outnumbered 3 to 1. The 3 dogs had dozens of quills embedded in their face and would need a vet to remove them.
In the last 2 years, we treated 15 dogs with quills. If you don't have experience with it, trying to pull them out can create far more problems than just taking them to the vet. If people try to remove them themselves and they break off, then the quills kind of collapse and migrate. Sometimes they migrate and then come out. Others migrate and cause chronic issues.
And sometimes a porcupine's quills can even be fatal.
I did a veterinary autopsy on a dog that had died of unknown cause and discovered that a quill had migrated through the chest and into the heart, resulting in the death of the dog.
So the vet knew Mary's dogs needed urgent attention to remove the quills.
Sweet Pea seemed like she was really hurting. Of the 3 dogs, she was hurting the most. And so when the vet came, she took care of Sweet Pea first. She had a lot of quills all up in her nose, inside her nose and on the outside of her nose. And she probably had about 20 different quills.
The barbs on the quills would make removing them very painful.
These dogs have to be sedated or put under anesthesia, and then you'll just start pulling.
What our vet did to take the quills out was she had like a pair of surgical tweezers. She would just, take a hold of her face and then just pull them out. She still cried a little bit when they came out, even though she had been knocked out. That between the 3 dogs, there were 75 different quills that were in all 3 of them.
Incredibly, all the dogs made a full recovery.
For the most part, getting them out went pretty good, and we didn't have any problems afterwards, so I think we got them all on the first try.
Dogs may be no match for the vicious quills, but sometimes porcupines fall victim to the dangers of living too close to people. Cars are the biggest threat to these porcupines. And as Anchorage expands, more and more are being killed as they seek out the emerging fireweed that grows near new roads. The zoo in the hills of Anchorage treats any injured porcupines found in the city. Today, vet Riley Wilson has a delicate operation to perform, which first means sedating his prickly patient, Peggy Sue.
We have a porcupine that had some trauma. It was hit by a car, we presume, because when it came in, it had a broken front foot and a kind of smashed face.
But getting his needles through Peggy Sue's needles is easier said than done.
Now, one of the biologists, she can go and do this by hand, just hold on to the tail with her gloved hand, but I'm not quite that brave. That's why I use a long stick.
Round 1 goes to the porcupine, so Riley calls for backup.
Shannon.
The vets get the animal cornered, but Peggy Sue manages to make a break for it using the fence.
Got most of it.
You like when she corns?
Eventually, Riley gets the sedative into the feisty porcupine.
Well, in the jab stick now, we gotta be ready for her.
Yeah.
Now they need to be ready to catch her when she falls asleep.
Once they fall asleep, hopefully they fall asleep, we'll pull the little duffer out and trim the teeth, and then we'll trim its toenails.
It may seem a lot of fuss for such a small job, but this porcupine has serious teeth problems as a result of being hit by a car.
Most of the animals that we do get are orphaned or injured, and sometimes they come in like this with unique ongoing problems. Because of the trauma to the face, the incisors that they primarily use for chewing, they were malaligned. So you can see the misshaped teeth. We have to trim their teeth about every 2 months to keep them in right position, and they're kind of all growing in the wrong direction. Porcupine teeth are a bit more unusual than rabbits. The rabbit's tooth bud is not too far underneath the gum line. Porcupine's teeth goes all the way, the whole length of the mandible behind the molars, so there's not a way to extract their teeth. Porcupine dentistry, 101.
Her dental problems are just one of the reasons Peggy Sue can never be released.
Their teeth are really used for foraging, and with malalignment in the wild, it would just continually be out of whack and really get grown into the face and stuff and wouldn't survive that. But here we can take care of it and provide its food without having to go get it for themselves.
With the teeth cut back, Riley then gives the porcupine a manicure, as its claws are also overgrown, a result of not having to forage for bark in the wild.
All right.
Then Riley takes the opportunity to examine her injured
The
leg.
other side. I amputated her leg about 2 years ago, but she's adapted very well. Even with the one foot missing, she climbs all over.
Sadly, her injuries mean she'll never be released back into the wild. But at least she has company. Another injured porcupine, Mr. Tickles.
You're waking up just right there, kiddo. Because she's already starting to wake up, and if we're not here, they're less stressed and wake up on her own. So, and it doesn't take them too long to get up and moving around.
Peggy Sue's lack of speed meant she was unable to avoid the speeding car, but in their natural habitat, porcupines are remarkably adept at climbing. In fact, escaping into the trees is their first form of defense. But it's also vital for finding bark to eat during winter. Porcupines evolved in the warm grasslands of northern Mexico. But thanks to their huge fat stores, their formidable quills, and their ability to climb, they can survive even Alaska's extreme wilderness. Their instinct to climb and forage, however, gets them into serious dangers when they venture into the city of Anchorage. Whether it's searching for shelter, or stealing pet food. The porcupines have got a taste for city life. With porcupine incidents on the rise, the city's wildlife officer needs to be on the lookout for any signs of porcupine activity in the city's leafy suburbs. And Park Ranger Colin doesn't have to look far to find the first evidence of porcupines feeding on the ground.
Yes, this has certainly been chewed on by porcupines. There's really no other animals that would be in this area doing this. It's definite evidence of porcupine right here, all of this.
There's also evidence of winter feeding.
Some of these trees around here as well, you can see higher up where they've chewed the bark, that's what they feed on. And these are cottonwood trees that they're feeding on. But they've certainly been in this area.
Many people walk their dogs in this area, and so Colin will ensure there are adequate warnings about the potential danger of encroaching into the porcupine's territory. Luckily, most of Anchorage's residents already know where the city's animals live, and know when and how to avoid them. But people sometimes use this knowledge for less humane reasons. At the Conservation Centre, they are caring for a 1-year-old porcupine that lost its leg after being caught in a trap.
So this is Kit, short for Kit Kat. He was brought here to the center last summer. He was found up at Anchorage, caught in a snare. The wire of that snare wrapped so tight around his back right leg that it had to be amputated. There was just too much tissue damage that it couldn't be repaired.
Kit Kat recovered from the operation, but if released, he would have struggled to find food, and having become used to humans, he would be an easy target for hunters. So much so that Brad's now even able to touch his defensive quills.
So that's actually one of the training things that we do with him, is getting him comfortable being touched everywhere. So it's actually good practice right now.
This unlikely bond between Brad and Kit Kat is quite unique.
So Kit here's pretty special. He is a little selective on who he'll work with. Being the first person that he worked with, he does work quite well with me. He's very smart. He's a rodent, so they do learn pretty quickly. And with him being so young, he does learn very fast.
To demonstrate Kit Kat's high intelligence, Brad has used training methods usually used only in higher mammals like seals and dolphins. Underneath Kit Kat's often clumsy appearance lies a sharp brain that immediately learns to touch the pole to get a reward.
There we go.
Although they have a close bond, Brad would love to have been able to release Kit Kat to live a full life in his natural forest habitat. Life in the wild would be tougher, but a porcupine's resilience means they can withstand even Alaska's coldest conditions. Trees may be their usual habitat, but sometimes they go underground for shelter, to escape the extreme cold, predators, or an even more deadly enemy. Forest fire. The sap of their favorite pine needles is highly flammable, so when a fire hits porcupine territory, it spreads very quickly, too fast for a cumbersome porcupine. And many lose their lives in the branches. But those able to find a deep enough hole may survive. During a forest fire, however, there are other animals fighting for their lives. After a huge blaze close to Anchorage, 5 orphaned wolf pups were brought into Alaska Zoo. Not only were they dehydrated, they had been quilled by a porcupine that had entered their den to escape the fire.
A porcupine must have got down there, and so they were full of porcupine quills.
Panicked by the fire, the porcupine had seen the den as a safe haven. But once inside, the frightened pups appeared to be a threat. A defensive strike of his quills killed one of the pups, and another received an injury that would have killed it had they not been brought into the zoo.
So they had them all over. We had one that was quilled in the eye, and so they made repeated trips to the vet. The vets made repeated trips out here. They were maybe 2 to 3 weeks old, so they went into our infirmary where we could start medically assessing them, doing blood work, pulling quills. And the quill pulling was daily because they went in, but they migrated through parts of the body and then they would come out. So we'd be petting them and bottle feeding them, and we'd feel a quill and then we'd pull it out, but it was the end that had gone in. But soon enough, we stopped finding quills.
The 5 pups rescued by the firefighters all survived and have now grown into a healthy wolf pack at Minnesota Zoo. But the porcupine stranded by the fire was sadly never found. Fortunately, forest fires are one thing the urban porcupines of Anchorage don't need to worry about. With Anchorage's almost round-the-clock summer sun, porcupines are active during daylight. But they are usually nocturnal foragers. Although their eyesight is so poor, daylight makes little difference. Their hearing and smell, however, are highly acute. And while they usually eat leaves and bark in the city, they often find other foods that take their fancy. One city resident's CCTV camera caught a greedy porcupine eating apples on his driveway. But soon the peaceful porcupine was joined by a large urban coyote. Coyotes do kill porcupines, but this one seemed more interested in the porcupine's apples. The porcupine stood his ground, defending his food by turning his back on the coyote and displaying his deadly quilled tail. Perhaps, having been quilled before, the coyote eventually backs down. Allowing the porcupine to have his fill of the apples. And once he's moved off, a fox, far too wary to have challenged the porcupine, cautiously moves in for a share. Thanks to its unique anatomy, the porcupine has adapted not only to Alaska's extreme climate, but also to the many dangers here in the urban jungle.